Alright, it's the Hawk. Back in December, a major wrestling personality returned to television with little fanfare or hype. This man was the leader of the Grey Crew, Eric Bischoff. Bischoff was presented with the opportunity to run every single aspect of creative for one night only in Major League Wrestling. Following on from his abortion of a TNA run, nobody was exactly clamouring for the return of Eazy-E to TV. The way he just gave up in TNA should have meant that he never worked in wrestling again.
Bischoff and the Grey Crew. Look at how many wrinkles do you think are in this room right now? Ric Flair looks like a foreskin.
But regardless of what I think of him, he's still a pretty big name in the wrestling world. Actually, he'd briefly been with this company before in 2016, but they had a pay dispute. You might be thinking, so what, it's just an indie show. Shut up or I'll smack you one. Well, in return, the Hawk will punch you square in the gut. It's actually very interesting. How will the 90s way of booking stack up against the 2024 way of booking? Things have changed a lot in the wrestling world. Well, according to Cage Match, this show was an absolute fail. Fans have complained that Bischoff should be left in the past for creating such a horrible show. In fact, Bischoff has since critiqued his own performance on the show, describing it as rusty. We're going to try and look at this show subjectively, and we need to be clear. There are some talented wrestlers on the card, but Bischoff was not in charge of who was within the company, just the matches he booked for MLW for one night, and this was his one shot. The show opens up with a cringy song about how this is Eric Bischoff's one shot. Yeah, I think we're going to get an overload of the leader of the Grey Crew on this show. He's the first man out. He's looking very skinny and burnt, if I don't say so myself. He gets a huge thank you Eric chant. His boring promo is interrupted by Matt Riddle and Tom Lawler. They are the Filthy Bros. Matt Riddle talks about WCW and AEW and how much he meant to them. Yeah, conveniently didn't mention his freest day in TNA though. The promo changes suddenly as Lawler asks him if he plans on bankrupting MLW like he did WCW. As a punishment, Bischoff makes a stipulation that Riddle will lose his world title shot if he doesn't first win another match tonight. They do some Eric Cartman impressions and Riddle leaves. Bischoff decides to start talking about the NWO. It's really starting to drag at this point as he forgets his lines and doesn't know what to say. He does a survey to see who's the most popular member of the NWO. It seems like Scott Hall wins this survey, but Bischoff can't be bothered to reveal the results of the survey. Now he's interrupted by Mads Krueger. He's upset because his contrafaction runs MLW and not Bischoff. As usual, Bischoff isn't scared of the wrestler as he arrogantly smiles and reveals that he's putting him in a match against Babathunder. Jesus Christ, that's twice this month I've had to watch this giant, and the first time he was a giant disappointment. It takes ages for either man to leave their feet as they plod around the ring. Mads struggles to clothesline him out of the ring. Thunder stops a tope and they fight on the outside. He rams Baba into the ring pole and sends him back to the ring. Krueger runs into a sidewalk slam though, but no pin is made. Mads Krueger manages to hit a middle rope suplex. They continue plodding around for a bit. Baba fights off a sleeper by crashing back on his opponent, but Krueger no-sells that and chokes out Babathunder for the win. Very short, should have been better. The only real thought I had here was that if I was as blessed with the sort of height that these guys are, I would make damn sure that I was in the gym every single day to look as impressive as possible. They are blessed with the height that most people would kill for, and they're wasting it. They could be the next Psycho Sid. They could be on Easy Street. But it seems they'd rather stay on the indies forever. Krueger tells him to join his faction, and just like that, Thunder agrees to join the faction. What a wacky cast of characters Contra is. They are the modern day version of the Oddities. Why would he even want a man that he beat in 4 minutes? The comedy team are now joined by Bischoff, where more ass kissing happens of course. They keep calling him a genius. He says he would never give away match finishes like he used to in WCW, and in the next breath he tells us that the Hardy Boys won their TNA tag match tonight. The low-hanging fruit for Eric Bischoff, I guess. In the back, 3 guys talk about Paul London. I think it's the Andersons and Walter Hauser. Eric Bischoff walks up to meet him. This goes on forever too. It's poorly mic'd and I have no idea what they're even talking about. Bischoff brags about how well he's doing. It's not over now as Alex Kane walks up. He makes fun of how Bischoff turned WCW into trash. He's concerned that Bischoff is going to undo all of his hard work in MLW. Kane screams in his face and as usual Bischoff isn't scared and laughs about it. We've actually got a women's match next, which Bischoff isn't exactly known for. Ava Everett, who's got a pretty unique look. Is that Alberto Del Rio's former ring announcer? He's not here to welcome Del Rio, instead it's a lady called Deli Exo. Deli kicks her head off straight away. Everett fights off a powerbomb and returns the favour with a kick. She lands a net breaker for a 2. Deli responds with a fisherman suplex for a 2. There's a nice back suplex on the middle rope. It's not a move that we see that often nowadays. It doesn't end the match. Instead, Ava starts smiling like the Cheshire Cat. She has that smile wiped off her face for clothesline and the Delmi driver for the 3. A very short women's match. Not really a surprise, women's wrestling has never exactly thrived under Eric Bischoff. Dario Cueta is a man who doesn't seem to age. He takes shots at Bischoff for getting in his way. Delmi makes a challenge for the women's title and says she'll put her hair on the line. Not sure if that's accepted or not. Donovan Dijak looks like freaking Berlin from WCW. Cesar Duran meets with Bischoff in the back. Duran keeps trying to convince Bischoff to put some HLA on the show. Bischoff doesn't want to risk that in today's politically correct world. This annoys Cesar Duran and the Hawk. He gets even more annoyed when Bischoff reveals that he thinks masks are outdated in wrestling. Next, it's a fans' choice match. Bobby Fish takes on Alex Kane, who brings his dogfighting club with him. Not used to seeing him as a fan favourite. It's time to reveal what the fans' choice will be for the match. A moron in the crowd keeps screaming out chicken fight over and over again. What the hell is a chicken fight? That sounds like something the Hawk could probably do. The winner is a UWF rules match. Why would that even be an option? It's going to be all about scoring points with moves, and striking is discouraged. This gives Kane the advantage over Fish. Kane is winning because he keeps landing suplexes. There's no pinfalls in this match either. Fish is confused or perhaps irritated. They keep talking about points as it goes along, but there's no way to know what the score even is. This would be better if it was just a standard match. Didn't they learn anything from the TNA point scoring matches? Apparently you can lose points as well or something. I'm just trying to ignore all of that as Alex Kane has a really nice flurry of moves. Eventually it's decided that because Fish can't stand up after the flurry of moves, Kane has won the match. This just didn't work. Never do a UWF rules match again, a completely unnecessary stipulation which made the match worse. Bischoff interrupts the celebrations to give a shout out to the former TNA producer David Sahadi. Bischoff decides to fire Alex Kane. He leads a chant of hey 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 goodbye. That causes Kane to flip out and beat up the security geeks. Trevor Lee! Never been a fan of his, but at least he has a haircut now. Does he count as one of Jeff Hardy's stoner friends? We definitely need more of Shannon on this channel. He takes on Mistico, who will be putting his middleweight title on the line and also his mask. Trevor Lee dumps his nappy of fear for ages about how awesome Mistico is. He runs into a head scissors and he also dives off the ropes into an arm drag. Lee manages to stop a baseball slide and pounds on him on the ring apron skirt. Trevor Lee is very happy of his work. This match really drags and there are hardly any big moments to speak of. It does improve whenever Mistico is on offense. He hits a diving springboard crossbody and a head scissors. He still can't dive out of the ring though. Lee hits a Shining Wizard for a 2. Like a dumbass, Lee gets distracted trying to remove Mistico's mask whilst on the top rope. I thought he was going to pay for that mistake, but he doesn't. Instead, he hits a baseball slide from Mistico in the Tree of Woe. He goes back to trying to rip off the mask when he's knocked down. Mistico still can't hit a dive, but he does hit a snap slam. Pins are traded for a while, but none of them are good enough to get the JOB done. They fight on the top rope for a while when Mistico ends the match with a Spanish fly. It was an okay match, but dragged at times. It was a pretty safe match, nothing remarkable, but nothing really bad. It's funny, the luchadors that Bischoff would have dealt with in WCW would have had far crazier matches. Cesar Duran is very happy that Mistico doesn't have to remove his mask. He says Bischoff has failed in destroying MLW. It's a very good promo from this man. He has energy and charisma. How has this man never had a shot on the biggest of stages? Seems ridiculous to the Hawk. The next match will be a number 1 contenders match between Donovan Dijak, whose manager Fat Joe calls New York a dump, and Matt Riddle. Dijak is huge. I have to say, you know the Hawk has watched a lot of the NWA, and this roster in MLW looks far more professional. Not just a bunch of kids or overweight people. Actual wrestlers. WWE should stop looking at the TNA roster and AEW at NWA. MLW is where the guys with the potential are. Dijak hits an early backbreaker side slam. He's having a good old time beating on Riddle, but he's taking it too lightly. Riddle no-sells a middle rope superplex. What is it with everyone suddenly completely no-selling this move? This used to be seen as almost as powerful as a finisher. Now guys just shrug it off like it's nothing. Riddle comes back with a bunch of strikes and overhead suplex. He also hits a powerbomb and a knee to the noggin for a 2 count. He misses his moonsault though, and Dijak boots his head off. Riddle nicely counters a chokeslam and he hits the Broton bomb, shockingly just a 2. Dijak no-sells kicks and calls Riddle a pussy. He can't hit his finisher though as Riddle traps him in a submission. Fat Joe takes away the referee and waddles around the ring for a bit. Someone rings the bell, Tom Lawler stops the post-match attack and Riddle does some crotch chops and it ends. It was okay, but again, nothing remarkable. C.W. Anderson and Brock Anderson will face Matthew Justice and actor Paul Walter Hauser. Is this man seriously only 38? Must have led a difficult life. The match stipulation is decided by a roulette wheel which lands on Street Fight. It's literally just a bunch of trash weapon shots. It's one of those terrible hardcore matches where they haven't really planned out any spots. They just keep smacking each other like morons. Walter Hauser takes a cab driver slam on chairs. Justice sends himself for a table. Walter Hauser sends C.W. Anderson for a table with a Death Valley driver, and then it just ends when Walter Hauser dives into the exposed turnbuckle. Terrible, horrible, worthless match. The main event will be a tag title match between Okamura and Kojima, and the champions are Kwan and Suzuki. Someone needs to tell Bischoff this card sucks Sonny Siaki's ass. Kojima and Suzuki square off, which just feels strange in 2025. Has Bischoff not learned from WCW mistakes? 3 of the main event guys here are in their 50s. The good guys hit a double elbow drop for a 2. Suzuki then cheats from the outside and he puts on an armbar across the ropes. The match has turned. Kwan hits a sling blade backbreaker. Not sure if it was a botch, who knows. Okamura eventually manages a takedown and Kojima has the tag. Kojima comically chops down both men, but Suzuki no-sells it. I just can't take this serious. It looks so funny. This is probably my happiest moment of the show, but I don't think it was supposed to be funny. This goes on for so long. Show this to a non-wrestling fan and they will lose their shit. Suzuki carries on no-selling his offense. He even no-sells a diamond cutter and big boots Kojima away. They turn their attention to Okamura, but they can only get a close fall on him too. The face guys wake up and Okamura hits a diamond cutter to Kwan for a 2. Kwan is stopped from doing the miss by Okamura and Kojima hits a lariat. Suzuki also gets one which just looks horrible. Okamura then hits the third cutter of the match from the top to Kwan and that's how it ends. Tag title change and now Kojima is a double champion. I'm sorry, but this main event was the drizzling shits. These guys could barely move, nothing interesting happened and a number of things look bad. Tell me, why did they throw bread into the ring? I don't get the reference. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I actually like Kojima, but this was not Eric Bischoff's best idea. Fancy ending your one-shot show with slices of Hovis pelting the wrestlers in the ring after a horrible match. I have to agree with the internet on this one, the show was bad. Bischoff ate up horrendous amounts of TV time. Several matches had bad gimmicks which didn't work. The women didn't get anywhere near enough time. The last 2 matches were an absolute abortion. Okay, yes, there were some matches that were passable, but they were just okay. The leader of the Grey Crew fails once again. It is difficult to detach yourself from the actual wrestlers on the card and what Bischoff was able to serve up, but I believe you can quite clearly see a difference in his style to the modern style we're all used to. While the show wasn't the worst show I've ever seen, it wasn't good either by a long stretch. Now, despite what we may think of that, MLW announced that Eric Bischoff would be returning to MLW to produce their Super Fight 6 show. This show is rated better, but it did benefit from a slightly stronger card of wrestlers. Anyway, let the Hawk know what you thought whilst watching this show. Do you think Bischoff's booking style has a future in wrestling, or would you just like to see him go away? And if you don't agree with that, I'll make your girl stray.